today. We have a very nice crowd. Just a quick background on HEP. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we've been serving nonprofits for about over 15 years, and you've probably seen us a lot in matching gift area. We have a big database of matching gift companies. There are a couple of administrative goodies I'd like to go over with you just quickly. We'll be not working you too hard this afternoon, but you do have a few responsibilities. If you get knocked off for any reason, all you need to do is simply call back in or click on the link that you received via email. If you hear any echoes, you may want to turn off your speakers on your PC. We will be recording the session today and have it up on our website. It's hepdata.com, and you can look in our Learning Center. It usually takes us a day or two to get it up, but we do have several other webinars there, actually, on career services that you might have an interest in as well. You do have an ability to ask questions of our presenters here today and myself. You'll see a place on the screen where you can ask questions, and we'll try to answer those at the end of our presentation. We're quite privileged to have with us today two presenters. Suzanne Scott-Trammell, who's Executive Director of the University of Alabama, Birmingham Career and Professional Development Center, and Molly Wasko, who's Chairman of the Department at University of Alabama in Birmingham. So let me give you a little background on Suzanne and Molly, and then we'll begin the actual presentation. Suzanne has about 13 years of experience in sales and marketing with Fortune 100 consumer products companies and over 15 years in career coaching and consulting. She's had the privilege to work with postdocs, PhDs, MBAs, alumni at Vanderbilt, University of Florida, Auburn, University of Alabama, University of Montevallo, and before joining UAB as Executive Director of Career and Professional Development, she worked for the human resource firm called Lee Heck Harrison, specializing in career transition and leadership consulting. And she's got a Bachelor of Science degree from Auburn and a Master of Education in Counseling and Guidance from the University of Montevallo. Molly Wasko is an Associate Professor and the Chair of the Department of Information Sciences and Management and Quantitative Methods at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, where she teaches strategic information, corporate information security, web analytics, and project management. She's also a Chief Technology Officer for the high-tech company named Degree and responsible for overseeing sales, operations, and R&D. She's got a master's degree from Everett University and her doctorate degree in MIS from the University of Maryland at College Park. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Suzanne. Suzanne?
Hi, John, and hi. We're glad all of you are joining us today. Molly and I have presented this at NACE, as you can see on here. We presented at the NACE 2014 conference in San Antonio, had standing room only. So as a result of that, John graciously asked us to come back and present, and we've integrated in our PowerPoint presentations some of the questions and comments that you guys have sent to us. So we hope this will be helpful and look forward to answering your questions. So a little bit about us. Here's a picture of me. Molly?
There's a picture of me, but just to give you guys a little bit of background, Suzanne and I teamed up because UAB, at least here at UAB, we have a great tradition of working across silos. And so having strong tie connections between the academic units and the Career Service Office is one of I think the distinct features at UAB, and hopefully some of the things that we'll present that we've been able to develop together will be something that you guys can implement at your universities.
Great. Thank you, Molly. That's a great point. So some of the things we're going to cover today are what is coming in outcomes reporting. We know that ROI is such a big conversation in higher education right now. So what's coming in our outcomes reporting, and then some of the ways that we've used LinkedIn as a way to get better data, some of the things that we've done. So we want to show you kind of a best case scenario of some of the things that we've implemented and some of the changes that we're still doing. And then how to create a culture, how we've done it at UAB for integrating LinkedIn into the curriculum. And then looking at LinkedIn profiles as the new form of electronic resumes. So those are some of the things we're going to cover. So just to start off, one of the problems that we all face is not being able to rely on alumni to update their information. When they self-report that data, we're having difficulty getting them, number one, to fill out information, and number two, how do we validate and know that that information is accurate? So what we've started to do is look at, number one, we know that postgraduate jobs data is coming. We're going to have it. For those of you who have not Googled a college scorecard, Obama's college scorecard, President Obama, you need to do that. And you can have fun really playing around on that site, entering your college name and then entering in several different pieces of criteria to search for information. So that's coming. And then when you look at for your university, all of the 5 categories are filled out currently with the costs, with the median borrowing, with the different things that they track. The last of the 5 is employment. And as you can see here, what it says is that this data is not yet received, but in the meantime, contact that university that the student or the parent has selected, contact them to find out the number of students who got the jobs, the kinds of jobs they got, and how much they're earning on those jobs. So they're already publicizing that this employment data is available here at our universities, and they're looking to put that onto this college scorecard. Another site we really want you guys to be aware of is collegemeasures.org. So if any of you have not been on there, I would encourage you, to go on and look at College Measures. The goal of that is to track outcomes and also to provide the data for anyone who's looking for good data on where they need to go to school. It records key performance measures for 2-year, 4-year, and colleges, and gives some economic success metrics, which they call ESM. They give data on areas such as student success, college efficiency, college productivity, and employment outcomes. So there are already these universities, or these states, 6 states, some of whom are even having linked to their funding, to their state funding, the outcomes measures. So we've heard several different universities already talk about the governors of their states mandating them to provide this employment data to them to dictate how much funds they receive from the state level, from government. So we want to make sure that all of us know that this is coming. So I would encourage you to go and look at these sites to realize that this, in some way, we want to be proactive. In some way, you're going to be asked for this data, and we want all of us to be prepared so that we're not having to react, and we can be more proactive in collecting this data and having it at our fingertips when we are asked for it. Also, we know that we do great things, and we want to have the data and the statistics to back that up. And so having this data at our fingertips is really going to be really helpful. So we share this with you not to scare you, but to ensure that you are ready, that we're all ready. So what we want to do is share a few of the things that we have done to get this data, to get as much of the data as we possibly can. And one of the things that we did is we partnered with LinkedIn to get the information that we can off of them. As you well know, LinkedIn is the #1 professional networking site, and so a lot of the data that we're looking for, as you can see on the screen, is already available on LinkedIn profiles. So it just makes sense, and a lot of us are already doing that anyway. We're looking at ways to gather this data from LinkedIn. But through HEP Data, what we have done is partnered with them to collect it in a more systematic way. We have given them a criteria of information from our graduates that they then can mine the LinkedIn information to get the placement data that we need, or the outcomes data that we need to be able to report on. So this is just a little background on LinkedIn. We know that it's growing. We also know that it's very responsive to customer needs. So they've come out with a lot of recent products. So we anticipate it only growing from here. So what we want to do is look at ways that we can collaborate and benefit from the data that's already there with LinkedIn. As Molly said, and since we're not live, we can't have a face-to-face conversation, but some of the considerations that we want you guys to think about, as Molly said, we are collaborating more with the academic side. So really, we all need to be asking ourselves, thinking about how can we require students to build a LinkedIn profile? How can we start to incorporate that into the curriculum so that every student has to do it? Can we include LinkedIn profiles? And all of us have career action plans in some form for our students, so can we begin to include that as a requirement in our career action plans? And some of the quick tips and videos that are available on LinkedIn site, 2 of which we've posted right here that you can access when you access the slides later on, utilizing some of those quick tips and videos that are very student-friendly, very sharp and snappy to keep their attention. Are we utilizing those to help students see the benefit of using LinkedIn? So just to move into some of the things that we've done at UAB, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did in 2012-13 to gather data and what building in this LinkedIn mining system has done for us. So at our exit survey, we formerly surveyed students about 6 weeks before they graduated. We sent out a link so that it was all automated. We built a survey, and what we would continually get is about a 29% response rate. So some of us gave their company names, some of us gave graduate school names, and that's what we were reporting on. So when we started looking at the LinkedIn profiles and pulling data from that, we found 712 students who had LinkedIn profiles. 246 of those were new usable data, and I'll get into a little bit more what I'm talking about with usable data in a minute. So our knowledge rate, as NACE calls it, then was increased to 911, which took us up to a 40% response rate, which was a lot better than what we had had. We had 24 of those which were updated information from what the students had given us when they recorded the data in their survey. And what I started to say earlier, and I'll get into a map of what the process is in a little while. I'll show you a slide on that. But what we had done is 6 weeks prior to that, we sent the link out to them. And then 3 months after graduation, we followed up and sent the link out again via email from their dean of their college. And then 6 months after graduation, we followed up with another survey. So they were getting it all online, and it was integrated in. However, it was optional whether they filled it out or not, and so many of them were not, as you see, and as a lot of us experience, are not filling out those surveys. So we had to have a way to mine the data, to gather the data, which LinkedIn helped us to do, but also we've changed our process and integrated it into the application for a degree, which I'll go into it a little bit later. Just some of the rules for data inclusion that we used for our LinkedIn profiles is that we looked at the start time that that the survey was entered. We filtered it out and took those that had blanks in there out. So if anybody did not have a LinkedIn profile or did not answer the survey, we removed them. We looked at their term code, so we looked at the specific term in which they graduated, and we backed up to look at the bottom it says year hire and month hire. We looked at 6 months, their start date. I know a lot of you guys are concerned with using LinkedIn profiles because of the start times, if that was a job that they got as a result of their degree. So what we did is we looked at the year hire and month hire. For example, if they graduated in December after the fall term, we backed it up and looked and only selected those jobs that had a start time of June of that year. So what we were making the assumption on is that 6 months prior to graduation date, that would be their job as a result of their degree. So it would be related to that. So we built some of that in there. Now also, if you look at the employer match update, we looked at any that were new, so we wanted to build in the new entries, and we looked at the current position. Now this I had filter and manual, so that we actually looked through the data and pulled the position types. If they said administrative assistant or intern or student or bartender, some of those types of things. We filtered them out. We did not include those. So we eliminated the non-degree positions. Now that's what we did manually. So that's how we felt comfortable and confident in the LinkedIn data that we pulled. I know a lot of people have had questions and concerns about using LinkedIn data for that reason. So to move on to some of the NACE standards and protocols, when they released that report, there are some quotes here. We had several people that asked us after the presentation if that is usable data as far as NACE is concerned, and it absolutely is. The NACE guiding principles show that relevant data may be provided by employers, by parents, by other students, but also that LinkedIn profiles and other online sources are a relevant data source. And it also talked about data collection protocols should involve institutional research offices. So what we did for the next generation of our survey is we did partner with our institutional research office, and we've now required those surveys. Now they're required, and it's built into the application for degree, so that students, when they apply for degree, they automatically are asked these questions before they even get, and they're asked these before they ever even get to the application for degree. So they don't know when it starts and when it stops. So the exit survey, as you can see, we have quite a substantial response rate increase already, and this doesn't even include the 3-month and the 6-month follow-up data. So we've got quite a few students, actually 46%, who gave company names, and 8% who gave names of graduate schools. So really that response rate has increased as a result of that being required already. The required data, one of the concerns that we always hear is the application for degree can be filled out and the average time is 6 months before graduation. So obviously a lot of students don't have jobs at that point, full-time jobs. We have a follow-up schedule that I'll go over in just a minute that we're several different ways to collect data. However, at that time, if you'll see the second bullet point right here, the required survey collects participation in experiential learning, and then I've defined what experiential learning is so we can separate out and give percentages on what type of experiential learning the students actually participate in. Once they select what they participate in, we're actually asking them to evaluate their satisfaction level with that experience. So it also asks them about their interaction with career and professional development or the career services office. So that's a real benefit to having it. Even though it's 6 months prior, they still know what they've participated in there. And we are, as you can see right here, we are getting more responses even on the companies that they're employed with. So it's a lot more than what we thought it would be even then. So this is just a process flow chart showing you what we're doing at UAB. In our post-graduation plan survey, that's what we call it, it's embedded in the application for degree and also the registration for commencement. And as I said, that's typically about 6 months out. Now what we're doing at that time too is the first 2 questions are asking them about their permanent email address and their permanent cell phone. We're collecting that so that we can follow up with a calling campaign. We had several universities that we heard about that were implementing a calling campaign, and I talked to Mississippi State, University of South Carolina, several different universities that gave me really good best practices that they were using to employ, that they were employing to gather good calling campaign data. So we built out a call center app that actually, when we make the calls, we're using that permanent email and cell phone that we got right here to make phone calls to gather the data on where they're accepted into graduate school and where they're employed at the time. So after that point, we are doing the same 6 weeks prior to graduation email that we were, and at any point, if they say yes, they're employed, or yes, they're accepted into graduate school, they fall off. We don't follow up with them anymore. But if they say no, they're still seeking, they are followed up into the next step. So if they succeed after this email, they fall off, no still seeking, or no response, they go to the 3-month email. At that point, at the 3-month point, that's when we do our calling campaign, because we believe that most schools, most students, teachers, for example, they weren't getting employed until closer to fall or September. So this calling campaign collects that data on them when it may not have collected it at graduation. The students still may not have been employed or not known. So, of course, they fall off if it's yes. If no, then we release the data over, giving the student's name and several different indicators. We actually give them all the directory information, plus their, we call it Blazer ID, but their student identifier, some type of identifier, so we can ensure that the student match, we don't want to just go by name. We want to ensure that it is our student. So we give them that data, and then they mine LinkedIn to give us the results back that we then use to go through the process that I mentioned a while ago to ensure that it is good and valid data on their employment or graduate school acceptance. One thing that I didn't say earlier that we've begun to do now as a result of this process is we're building out a dashboard from our institutional research office, and so that all entities across the university, all deans, will have access to the information, to their school-specific information on placement, graduate school, experiential participation, employers hiring them, graduate schools where the students are going. So we've worked with institutional planning and analysis to build out graphs and dashboards for the university overall, and then we're drilling down into specific terms of graduation as well as specific schools, and then allowing the each degree program, each department and major to even drill down that much to collect that data. This just tells some of the sample index matrix, or the impact matrix that we've done. So the exit survey, these are some of the things that we're capturing from the exit survey. Then when we do the LinkedIn screen, we're capturing more data. At the 3-month process, we're capturing the additional less information, because we don't ask them for experiential, we don't ask them for the interaction with the career office again. Every time we're following up, we're asking for less information. Now last year we had a 6-month follow-up. However, there were only about 15 students total who responded at the 6-month period. So we found that we didn't want to mess with the 6-month time period because of that. So we have now, this year in 14-15, we've dropped off the 6-month period, and the chart that I showed earlier is what we're going with from this point on. After the 3-month follow-up, the 3-month calls, we release the data to HEP to give back to us, and then we do our analysis to pull the final information into the dashboard. So, you know, our challenge was always getting students signed up. So we've got to help them all during the process. As we mentioned before, we've got to help them understand how to create a LinkedIn profile so that that final piece will be effective. We have to get them online early, number one, because it's good for their careers. We know that so many people are now using LinkedIn and social media for a recruiting tool, and as many as users are using it now, it's going to only increase. So not only will we help them become more marketable by their LinkedIn profiles, but also we're gathering that valuable placement information that we need. So when we talk about creating a culture across our universities for integrating LinkedIn, these are just some things that helped us as we looked at partners. And of course Molly is a user of LinkedIn. She has mined the database in the past, so she was a great collaborator for us to get started on this. So when you're looking at your own university, look at where you have your allies, you know, your faculty, your departments, your programs that already know the value of gathering outcomes data. Look at which courses it makes sense to align with, and what materials do you need. We actually have sample course exercises and a grading rubric that's going to be available for you to use to take to faculty, so that this can be a part of a course that students are graded on. And we felt like that would be really helpful. We had a lot of people who asked us for a copy of that, so we're going to provide that to you. And then in keeping with you know, any kind of SMART goals that we teach students to do, looking at who we're going to reach out to, what is the date we'll reach out to them, and also what is the date it will be implemented into the curriculum. So this is just kind of our own guidelines that we've used to integrate this into the career action plan and into a student's educational experience to make sure that it's something that's not missed and that we're preparing them for next generation recruiting and job search. So with that, I look forward to answering any questions at the end, but I'm going to turn it over to Molly, who's going to go over specific budget benefit or specific benefits of LinkedIn for us individually and for coaching students, for working with our alumni, and even for working with our universities and building out university pages. So Molly, can you take it from here?
I think so. So do you see the building a profile screen?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now I have control. So this is Molly, and in case you guys are wondering why a business school professor is talking about LinkedIn, it's because my area of research is actually this intersection of digital and social networks. So I started following social networks before anybody had even heard about them. So back in about 2005, I'd heard about this LinkedIn site, and I thought this is going to be really interesting. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but it's going to be interesting. And so I started getting all of my MBA students signed up onto LinkedIn, and what I discovered was that by 2008 I actually had the largest MBA network in the entire university. So people started coming to me and asking, you know, who do we have in Orlando? The dean wants to do an event in Orlando and we want to know who to invite. And then students started coming to me and saying, Molly, you know, Disney's always been my dream job. Do we have anybody actually working at Disney? And so what I discovered, it's an incredibly valuable tool, but unfortunately universities didn't have access to it. So it's this idea that because employers are out there, students and alumni actually have a motivation for keeping a profile updated and making it look good. When we just ask them to do that as alumni and keep a profile updated with the university, it's not that they didn't want to, it's just people get busy, they run out of time. And so, you know, we started just using LinkedIn as a way to maintain connections with our alumni. And what's interesting, you know, when I talk to a lot of folks at the university, well, you know, stalking people on LinkedIn is creepy, or, you know, isn't this an invasion of privacy? When I talk to our alumni, what they say is, well, how could you lose me? I'm out there on LinkedIn. I'm right there for you to connect with anytime. So it's not that they don't want to stay connected. They're pretty comfortable with the fact that I've got this public profile and I want to maintain affiliations. Go ahead and connect. You know, it's interesting, one of the other things, when we presented this at NACE, people were very uncomfortable at the university actually promoting a third-party software to students. So it didn't feel comfortable for a lot of our university folks to say, okay, I'm going to move you over to LinkedIn to use as a tool. So this part of the presentation is going to talk about why you're not doing students a disservice, but you would actually be doing students a disservice if you don't have them go out and create a LinkedIn profile. So first of all, what you need to know about creating a LinkedIn profile, it is super, super easy. So what you do is you just go to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is going to just have students fill in these little boxes. They make it so simple for students to do. And you know, when you start typing things in, LinkedIn is going to make recommendations. So there are going to be these drop downs. So these are company names of companies that are already in LinkedIn and have company profiles. So what you want to encourage students to do is to use these drop downs whenever possible, because then they become hyperlinks. So if you click on this, you can see everybody else who also has listed that employer. Same thing happens with the university. So when people start typing in a university name into their profile, make sure your students know what university name to use. Because, you know, a St. John's may have 3 or 4 different versions, or, you know, at my alma mater, it was Florida State University, but students would type in FSU, they would put in FSU School of Business. But unless they know which specific university name to use, that hyperlink won't be as effective. So encourage students when they're filling out a profile to always use the hyperlinks. You know, the other thing, we use a 3-staged process here in the School of Business. So when we get students coming in as freshmen or transfers in our Business 101 class, we have students start a LinkedIn profile, and it's actually fairly simple. So what we're trying to do is to get them out there and create a presence. And then when they're, juniors, we have them revisit that in the Business 350 class, which is our communications class, and we have them really professional it up. But we want students to start learning to transition from what they're very used to with a social profile into a professional profile. The other thing that we have found, it is incredibly difficult to get students to sit down and write a resume. For some reason, getting them from a blank piece of paper to a resume is just a step that is way too big for a lot of them to take. So we get a lot of students that won't even approach career services because they know they're going to have to produce this resume. If we can get them taking baby steps, start with a LinkedIn profile, start filling in this information, build it up as you go along with your college career, then that next step to building a resume is relatively simple because they can start just by using a PDF of their LinkedIn profile. So we're finding much more buy-in when we've had, just started them with the LinkedIn profile because that's doing an activity they're already very used to. You want students to just sign up for a free account. Everything that they're going to need for a job search or business research is available completely for free. And then, once you get through some initial information, LinkedIn is then going to prompt students, here is everything that you need to complete your profile. So it's like walking through a wizard of how to complete out this information step by step, using these queries. It's very simple for them to do. Some of the key features you want students to point to. You are 7 times more likely to be viewed if you have a professional headshot. So this is not a selfie. This is not, take a picture of yourself using your PC camera. It has to be a professional headshot or nothing at all. So you don't want students, posting pictures that they just get off of Google Images. Professional headshot. So one of the things that career services can start providing is, photography services. So if you have a career fair, make a photographer available when students are already dressed up so they can get that headshot done and have something that they can put up on their LinkedIn profile. The other thing that you want to encourage them to do is to use a catchy headline. So right here, this is the area that's called the headline, and this is editable. So see the little pencil there? Right now the default is your position at your employer. And so if it's a student, the default is student at university. And so employers see thousands of students at university. So what you want to encourage students to do is change this into a short phrase that highlights some of their skills or abilities. The next thing you want students to do is to actually create a custom LinkedIn URL. So when you create a profile, LinkedIn will assign you a URL, which is typically some combination of your name and then a long string of numbers. But LinkedIn will let you edit this, so it's customizable. It can be shorter and more, geared towards actually finding you. So having students create a custom URL. One of the cool features that they just added in the past year is this ability to add a portfolio of work in a variety of different formats. This is perfect for students to upload some of their class projects, to upload some of their presentations, to do a short intro video of themselves. But this is a great place where a portfolio can be assembled by the student that they can show off to prospective employers. So just some of the top 10 student do's and don'ts when you're helping coach students through this. Number 1, use a professional email address. So it still stuns me, and I have business school students, so these are already ones that are fairly conservative, but the things that they will choose for an email address that actually is publicly addressed to them. So, cutebunny@gmail.com. If that's what it is, tell them to use their .edu or to create a brand new email address, because this is the one that's going to be showing up on their resume. So they want it to be as professional as possible. Encourage students to use proper business English. So we have a tendency to see students that forget to use capitalization, punctuation, because it's electronic, right? That's like I'm just sending out a tweet. So making sure that even though it's an electronic profile and it's out there in social media, it is using proper business English. Make sure they have a professional headshot or don't post one at all. Create the compelling headline so it's not the default student at. Students should list their current position if they have one and at least 2 past positions, even if these positions are lifeguarding. So just as you would in a student's resume, help them position the position, the job experience that they have in a way that's compelling and meaningful. So even though you were waiting tables in high school, you have significant skills that you've developed, such as communication skills, self-motivation and reliance. So the same thing applies here. The big difference is probably you want to just make things a little bit shorter. Complete the summary section. If you look at the profile directly under that heading space that gives your picture and your position, there's something called a summary. Treat this like you would an email. So when you get an email and it's more than 1 inch long, you don't read it. You just put it to the side. So it should be one short paragraph. It can have bullet points, but really this is the highlight in about 1 to 2 inches of what you want to communicate as key qualities of yourself. Encourage students to complete the specialties and interest sections. So, the more information that's out there, the more they can uniquely tailor their profile. You want students to seek recommendations. So great sources of recommendations are managers that have worked with them in the past. It could be professional connections where, you have neighbors or parents, friends that you've worked with or have a strong tie connection to, and even faculty. Another great tool for students is to encourage them to join groups, especially if you have strong alumni groups. A lot of career service offices will actually have their own LinkedIn groups. That way, if you have employers posting jobs and their jobs are out there on LinkedIn, that you can highlight those through your career services group. And then this new Get Discovered feature allows students to show off a wide portfolio of works in a different range of formats. So that's also very helpful. So what's in it for the student? So certainly, trying to convince students it is worth their while to engage in this is going to be the trick. We have to give them a compelling reason for why they would need a LinkedIn profile. Because chances are pretty good they're going to say, well, I already have Facebook, so why would I need this? So first of all, we need to help students understand that there is a difference between a social network and a professional network. So when they look at the types of connections they've created, really now it is accepted by most employers that we're going to have a social presence, but then we should also have a professional presence. So Facebook friends are their friends and their family members. It actually is really creepy for a professor to get a student that sends a friend invite in Facebook. And so these are LinkedIn connections. They're professors, they're advisors, the people that they have worked with. So starting students as soon as they walk onto campus to start thinking about how can I build a professional presence. I probably already have a social presence, but I need to rethink my connections to build a professional presence. So one of the great tools that LinkedIn has is it's a great way to research companies. So there are tens of thousands of employers out there on LinkedIn. They have what's called this employer page. So this is Hewlett-Packard's employer page. You can follow this page. So if you have a student that desperately wants to get hired at Google, have them actually look up the Google page, follow the Google page, and this is where companies will post updates. You can see how you're connected to people in these companies, which is pretty neat. You can follow any news updates going out in the company, and then you can apply for jobs through this company page. So when students apply for jobs, what they'll do is they'll click on a job and it'll bring up a detailed job description. You know, this is also a great tool for students who are still in kind of the career seeking path. So, you know, my major is MIS, Management Information Systems, and it's such a broad major. There's so many career outcomes that students can, you know, go down multiple paths. So we get this question a lot from students, what am I going to do with this degree? So what we encourage them to do is go out onto LinkedIn, start looking at some of these job descriptions, and see what are the types of things that interest you. Then look down at the skills section, and then make sure that they try and tailor their educational experience to the types of jobs that they find compelling. So it's a great research tool not only for finding more information about companies, but also about career paths that are of interest to them. So typically these job description pages will include, here's how to contact the job poster. It'll show you how you're connected to them. It'll give you a salary estimate, and then other people that you will know at this company, so as part of your LinkedIn network, so you can reach out and maybe get an introduction. Finally, another really great tool, in my opinion, is that here are the jobs that people who viewed this job also viewed this job. So it allows students to consider organizations that, you know, they might not have never heard of before, but have similar types of positions. So once again, great research tool for students to use as part of their job search. Another thing that students can do is they can apply for this position now by clicking here, or they can save it into a job folder to look at later. So with Apply Now, that means students actually apply for the position using their LinkedIn profile. They don't send in a resume. That, you know, what they have in LinkedIn goes directly to that employer. So this is one of the reasons we're making the argument that LinkedIn profiles are going to start outpacing resumes as the preferred method of contact. So when we, you know, were presenting at NACE and proposed that for career service offices that what's really important is making sure they have a compelling LinkedIn profile and then the resume, there were people that were really uncomfortable with that. That this thought that the resume was going away was just, we got a lot of pushback on that idea. However, at the end of the presentation, the people who came up and spoke to us were the employers that were sitting in the audience that said, you know, you're exactly right. I haven't taken a paper-based resume in over a year. And these were top companies like Apple and Disney and P&G. So, you know, the folks that are out there recruiting our students don't want to go through a stack of paper. They want to connect electronically through methods like LinkedIn. So why do they want to have some type of e-resume? First of all, it's much easier to keep up to date. And there are date fields in the LinkedIn profile, so you can see this is when this person had this job, this is when this person graduated. The other thing is that they're searchable. So if an employer is looking for someone who has, you know, Java skills, you can't tap a stack of paper and have it resort itself into just the people with Java. But you can do that if it's electronic. So it helps them be able to search for key criteria that they're looking for certain positions. They're much more easy to organize, especially if you apply directly through LinkedIn. Those go into an employer for a folder for the employers, so they actually have a list. Here are all the people who are interested in that job. It's unforgettable. So because it's connected to things like a picture and a headline that is unique, that you're much more likely to stand out and be memorable as opposed to a piece of paper. It provides tracking for the university. So once again, you know, one of the big advantages, if we can get them to create this LinkedIn profile, then we will never lose touch as they make their career progressions over time, that we can track where they go. And if we get them to connect with us and join our groups, we'll stay connected with them forever. So huge benefits of using LinkedIn as e-resumes. So LinkedIn is basically emerging as a tool to help us manage the complete student life cycle. So for those of you that aren't aware, about 6 months ago, LinkedIn updated its terms of use to include 14 to 18-year-olds. Their thinking behind this is they want high school kids to start using LinkedIn as a way to actually do research on universities. So when they rolled this out, they also rolled out something called the university page. So here is our university page here. So what you can see, we have our own page dedicated to the university. It gives general information, and then what LinkedIn is doing is actually aggregating the information about all of our alumni to say, here is where alumni from UAB go to work. So if a student is interested in getting a job at Regents, all they have to do is click on this bar, and it will bring up the profiles of all of our alumni that work at Regents or Southern Company. And of course, you know, other information like what they do, what their majors were. It's also a great way to actually get information out to people and to engage in conversation. The other thing, if everybody who has UAB in their education profile on LinkedIn automatically becomes a follower of this page. So it's a way for us to stay connected and send out messages. So you can see, it's going to be used for new student recruiting to come to campus, those students who are doing research. It's going to be used for students that we have on campus trying to land that first career. And then it's going to be used as a tool for alumni engagement. You know, the other thing, this is a great tool for career centers to use. So once again, explore the careers. If you want to know where alumni go to work, then look here. And look through these. Do you have alumni in these organizations that are coming back to recruit on campus? If you know who your top employers are, and if there's one out there that's not coming to a career fair, why not? And see if you can make a connection to make that happen. So, great example for career centers to engage in better, business development and bringing people back onto campus. So here's just a page with hyperlinks to some great resources. You're not out there on your own. You don't have to develop everything from scratch. That LinkedIn has made a lot of great resources. As Suzanne said, we have actually customized a one-page tutorial for the student, also connected to a one-page grading rubric that a faculty can use, so you can easily integrate it into your course curriculum. So with that, we're going to go ahead and stop and open it up to questions.
Well, thank you very much, Molly and Suzanne. That was great. We appreciate it. We do have a few questions, and if you have any, I'll ask you to go to your little box there and send along the questions to Molly and Suzanne. But we've managed to get a couple in here. Let's see. The biggest question we got is, will the recording be shared after the session? The answer to that is yes. We'll have the PowerPoint as well as the copy of the webinar up on the Hep Data Learning Center. It'll take us a day or two to get that up there, but that's sort of the biggest question that people were asking. But one of the other ones was, let's see. Have you faced any questions or concerns about collecting and then reporting employer names, parentheses, on your new dashboard or in other ways?
Have we faced any concerns from the employers on reporting it on the new dashboard?
Yes, about collecting and then reporting the employer names on your new dashboard or in other ways.
No, because they're hiring our students. I mean, it's just PR for the employers, so there's not really, hasn't really been any downside. Now, if we're pulling it from LinkedIn and it hasn't been self-reported, it's the same principle. We haven't, the employers just like it because it's showing that they're engaged on campus. So, no, we haven't.
Well, and just to follow up with that, a lot of employers are actually encouraging their new employees, all their employees, to actually have a LinkedIn profile linking to their company because it's a great recruiting tool for the companies to get their message out there. You know, the other thing about, yes, it's self-report, the student completes a profile and really they can type in whatever they want. They could type in, I'm working at Google, or I have a degree from Harvard, but because it's peer-reviewed, that there's a lot of pressure to keep the information up to date and to keep it really accurate because people will catch it if you put something up there that's wrong.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, the other one was, will a certificate of attendance be provided to those who attended today?
John, that's yours.
Okay, we'll be happy to provide one. My email will be, for connecting, will be on the, we'll send everybody an email with the nice handouts that Molly and Suzanne have provided and your homework. And so we got a bunch of attachments we'll be sending to you. So you'll have my email there, and I'd be happy to get that out to you. That's, I think, about it.
Well, John, I just want to make one comment that we couldn't do this without the support of HepData. And so the ability to turn over a list of students and get that information back within a day or two has been incredibly helpful. And of course, once we get that LinkedIn URL, it's a unique identifier that we can match to a student record that makes it easy for us to stay connected with them throughout their careers. So even though Career Services may just want that information for the first destination survey, our counterparts and friends over in Alumni Services and Development, you know, this is data that they want as well, and a way for us to stay connected with them long after they graduate.
Okay. Yes, there's a couple more questions that came in. There's one here about, is there anybody specific that you work with at LinkedIn?
No. So the way it works with HepData is this is publicly available information that you can gather via a Google search. So there's nothing magical going on other than what you could do yourselves, especially if you had a team of student office workers working for you. Basically, you would do search first name, last name, you know, university, and just copy and paste over the information from a LinkedIn profile. So once again, it has to be publicly available information, and it has to be a targeted list of people you're looking for specifically. So one of the things with LinkedIn, if you just type in the name of your university and graduated in 2014, it'll show you individual profiles, but it's going to restrict the amount of information you can see. If you're not actually connected to those people, then their names aren't going to be showed. It's just going to be LinkedIn profile or LinkedIn member.
Right. Thanks, Mal. Another question here is, should classic majors, 12,000 LinkedIn accounts, marine sciences majors, 15,000, and health and wellness majors, go with a LinkedIn account before a resume? This is from Tom.
Well, you know, a lot of the discussion that we had at NACE was on, you know, right now you probably need to be doing both. But LinkedIn is the way, I mean, we believe that it's the way of the future. So having them build that first makes a lot of sense because, you know, as much as we'd like for everybody to have a resume, and we put it on our system, we're a CSO user, but when we put it on our system and critique every first resume, as a lot of career centers do, but there's also a way to link to their LinkedIn profile through that as well, and I believe Simplicity has the same thing. But it's really not a lose. There's no lose to having a LinkedIn profile, and it allows those job seekers to actually search for jobs in those areas that could be in the hidden job market that may never place jobs on our internal sites. So there's not really a lose to students doing that. So I would say yes. To be on the safe side, there's not a downside to having both.
So, another thing to consider, that employers can post jobs directly onto LinkedIn. So they can, post it via LinkedIn. The other thing that LinkedIn does is it actually scrubs the internet for all open jobs. So, even if it's not posted on LinkedIn, if it's posted on the internet, then LinkedIn is going to actually funnel it into what they have as available job openings. And when we started using LinkedIn to help universities track alumni about 2 years ago, what we found was that we had much higher percentages if we were looking for business, law, computer science, the more professional, hard-skilled majors. It was harder to find people in the arts, people in education, people in nursing, people that went research pre-med. But we're really seeing a shift in that, especially with nurses, docs, postdocs, and artists. And this is because even if you're in these types of non-traditional industries where you don't think, oh, I need to have a LinkedIn profile or a resume, this is where your client base is going to look first for information about you. Mm-hmm. And so what we've seen recently is the fastest growing industries out there on LinkedIn are actually in the arts, liberal arts, and medicine.
So another question here, we're getting quite a few coming in right now actually. How'd you get the faculty on board for your rubric?
So all it takes is one. Find a good introductory core class where it actually ties in well with the pedagogy. So this is what really gets the faculty. If I'm teaching English Lit and you want me to have them create a LinkedIn profile, it's really hard for me to justify that. But if it's something like a Business 101 or a communications class, then it's a really easy fit. Also, if you come to them with the grading rubric already created, so the faculty doesn't have to do the work, it's just, here, check this off, they're going to be much more likely to buy in. You're going to have strong advocates in your academic programs where we have accreditations and we have to track outcomes associated with those accreditations. So I know your business schools will have an accrediting body, your law schools, your health professions, health sciences, your engineering schools, that in order to maintain our top accreditations, we have to be able to say where people go. And so being able to track them after graduation, which is the partnership they can have with you, is going to go a long way with getting buy-in from faculty.
Right. And as Molly said, you start with where you've got the strongest allies. We don't have this integrated in every department in every school. However, as we're gathering this data and showing how much more accurate we can get from the schools where we do mine LinkedIn data and those students do have profiles, we've got a case, we've got a business case right there to go out and sell the other faculty because they do need that outcomes data. Great question.
Yeah, question here from Julie. She went to her, I guess, her university homepage, and I guess where it shows on yours at Alabama there, where the alums are employed, she didn't see that on her university. Any thoughts or suggestions for Julie?
Yeah, Julie, there's actually about 6 different views of that, so you should be able to scroll over and see multiple ones. The other thing you can try is going through a different view of that. So if you go to linkedin.com/college/alumni, then it will bring up all kinds of aggregate data specifically about your program that's separate from your university page. So it's just college alumni, LinkedIn college alumni. If you Google that, it'll take you right to it. Put in your university name, and you'll get those the ability to drill down into lots of different criteria around your alumni.
Julie just said she found it, so we're good shape.
Good.
Awesome.
I think I want to I think it's 3 o'clock here. I think we better wind it up. Everybody probably has to run. But just want to say thank you very much to Suzanne and Molly in behalf of HEP Data, and thank you all for coming today. And we will be communicating with you with where you can view the PowerPoints and get copies of this and copies of that. So thank you again for coming, and thank you everybody for all your participation today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm.